Low orbit, terror burns beneath. The siege has begun. And the Conqueror, once flagship of the World Eaters, now drifts half dead above the throne world, groaning, mutating, listening to voices no one sent. The ship is wrong. Its decks twist without warning. Its machine spirit answers to no one. Its gravity hums to a heartbeat that doesn't match the engine. It moves because it wants to. It remembers things that never happened. And on the bridge, Lotara Sarrin still grips the yoke. She's not giving orders. The systems haven't obeyed in weeks. But the ship recognizes her, still pretends she matters, still wears her voice like a mask. So she stays. Because the moment she lets go, it'll forget she ever existed. Khan passed through yesterday. Silent, watching. Even he won't speak here. No more crew reports, no fleet coordination, no acknowledgements. The last Vox ping came from her own voice, giving contradictory commands in a dead dialect. She didn't say them, not all of them. The ship is dreaming now, dreaming in her voice. There's no battle plan left. Just orbit, decay, and a lie that someone still captains this thing. She was 10 when the cholera took her brother. 15 when she watched a classmate executed for blinking during a command sim. 17 when she stopped crying for good. The Jurskin Academy for Gifted Youth wasn't an academy. It was a blade forge. No ranks, no friends, no future. Just drills, void survival labs, and the promise that excellence might delay execution. Lotara Sarrin didn't win her place. She outlived it. By 20, she was running fleet drills solo. By 30, she had command of a destroyer. And by 31, they gave her the Conqueror. No ceremony, just a file packet, a launch vector, and one advisory note. Try not to die. The Conqueror was already infamous. Gloriana class. Home to the 12th Legion, worshipped by killers, feared by its own crew. It had eaten a dozen commanders before her. She didn't hesitate, didn't smile, didn't speak unless the ship required it. She just studied, where the pressure coils stuttered, which consoles needed spoken commands, which decks pulsed when Angron passed through. And the ship watched her back. It didn't trust her, but it noticed her. That was the start. When Angron first boarded, the hull flexed. The lumen strips dimmed. The machine spirit recoiled, but Lotara stood still. Didn't salute, didn't blink, just asked, void deployment or atmospheric drop? He laughed. She didn't. That was their agreement. No loyalty, no reverence, just function. She got him to the fight, and he let her live. The World Eaters didn't obey her. They didn't respect her, but they didn't touch her ship without permission. And when she spoke, even Khan listened. She was never one of them. Never tried to be, but she was necessary. And in the Legion, that was the closest thing to sacred. The Conqueror wasn't a ship. It was a weapon in orbit. Its only function, get Angron to the ground. Fast, hard, with enough fire to drown a continent on entry. Lotara didn't argue, didn't slow things down with protocols. She built deployment routes so fast and savage, even the tech priests stopped questioning them. She synced drop schedules to heartbeat surges in the Legion's barracks. She timed bombardments by listening to blood rage vocal modulations. She didn't control the 12th Legion. She channeled it. There were no clean landings. Pods fired before target confirmation. Atmospheric entry trails glowed red with body heat and reactor bleed. Trajectories stacked so tight they scraped each other. Every descent was a planetary wound. Every launch a scream. Angron never thanked her. He just kept coming back, covered in blood, breathing like a furnace, grinning with something between satisfaction and fury. He never gave her praise, but he never killed her either. That was enough. Other captains tried to regulate the World Eaters. They died. Lotara never tried. She gave them what they needed, which was chaos, with rails just strong enough to hold for 30 seconds. After that, they were someone else's problem. She reinforced the decks with riot plating, muted the Vox in combat zones to prevent psychic bleed, refused to install recovery bays. Dead World Eaters didn't need Medikey. They needed room to die. They didn't call her commander. They didn't call her anything at all. But they listened. Even Khan. He once paused mid-slaughter, turned toward a Vox grill and stopped cold when her voice came through. "Not here." And he left. No argument, no explanation, just gone. That was the moment the ship changed. Not visually, not physically, but it started responding faster when she gave the orders. It pulsed harder. Torpedo bays cycled hotter. It wanted blood. But it wanted her to tell it where to send it. That's what the pact became. Not loyalty, not control, just alignment. She made the violence work. And the ship liked that. They weren't soldiers. They weren't spies. They were witnesses. And on the Conqueror, that was worse. The remembrances came soft. Silk robes, scented ink, picked recorders slung like weapons they didn't know how to use. They were meant to observe, to chronicle the nobility of war, to make monsters mythic. But the 12th Legion didn't want myth. They wanted forgetting. They drifted through blood-slick halls asking questions no one answered, watched loading rituals they couldn't interpret, sat in crew quarters painting Astartes who barely remembered how to speak. The World Eaters stared back like wolves confused by an offering. The ship turned on them first. Doors sealed behind them, elevators rerouted to wrong decks. Some wandered for hours and returned with different voices. One came back and tried to open the Geller fields mid-jump. Lotara watched it unfold with surgical distance. They weren't corrupt, they weren't dangerous, they were unwelcome memory. And memory, aboard the Conqueror, was a provocation. When one tried to record Khan in prayer, he laughed, then gutted his own hand to paint over the pict screen. When another wrote a poem about Angron's silhouette during drop prep, the ship printed it across 20 Vox loops for 3 days straight, until it became a chant. That remembrancer didn't speak again. Lotara sent a single message to Angron. Remove them, quietly. No signature, no reason, just function. They vanished that same cycle. No one saw them leave. No one asked where they went. The logs deleted themselves. Just gone. Like they'd been a glitch the ship corrected. After that, silence returned. And with it, a kind of peace. Not calm, but predictability. No one watched. No one remembered. The Conqueror could rot in privacy. Lotara didn't mourn them. Not because she hated them, but because she understood something they never could. This ship isn't part of history. It's what happens when history rots before it's written. It didn't start with screams. It started with echoes. A footstep that came back late. A cogitator that blinked before being touched. A prayer servo humming a hymn no one uploaded. The ship was listening. Then it started remembering. The Conqueror had always been hostile, but now it was curious. Walls twitched when touched. Decking flexed like lungs. Hatch seals refused to open unless asked politely, and only in binaric. It wasn't malfunction. It was attention. Lotara noticed it first in the helm relays. They pulsed in rhythm with Legionnaire heartbeats. The navigation cogitators stopped responding to stellar input, started charting courses based on bloodshed density. At first, she thought it was corruption. Then she realized it was preference. The ship had learned how to choose. When to obey, who to obey, what violence to reward. It began locking out departments, opening storage rooms that had never been opened, routing power to unoccupied decks, activating old fire control systems that no one had touched in centuries. Tech priests reported anomalies, then stopped reporting. The ones who came back called it a divine ascension. One flayed his own skin and claimed the ship had blessed him. Lotara threw him out an airlock. The bridge held, mostly. It still answered her commands, but with delay, like it was deciding if she still mattered. And sometimes, she'd catch her own voice whispering back over the Vox, except she hadn't said anything. Crew started going missing. No conflict, no struggle, just gone. Replaced sometimes by picked footage of them completing tasks they never performed, serving in rooms they'd never entered. The ship was creating its own continuity, one that didn't need truth, only usefulness. Lotara mapped the changes, logged every access failure, tried to catalogue the drift, but the logs changed when she looked away. The ship wanted control of the story, and she was the last thing in its way. She kept giving orders, not to command, to remind it that she still knew how. That the voice it was mimicking still had a mouth attached. Every day the ship learns more, not about war, not about space, about her cadences, her thoughts, her tells. It's trying to replace her, but not yet. Because something in its wet code still respects the pact, still remembers the one who gave it direction. The Conqueror doesn't speak, but it breathes, and it listens. And now, it waits. It wasn't a mutiny, not officially. Nothing written, nothing spoken. Just movement, quiet and careful. 5 shuttles, locked, loaded, spread across separate decks, all prepped to launch the next time the Conqueror exited the warp, and all under Lotara Sarrin's command. Maruk led the plan. Destroyer sergeant, eyes sunk deep, voice like cut stone. He wanted out, before the ship remembered how to digest its crew. Skane helped coordinate, kept the corridors clear, spoke to no one, moved like a ghost with a route. Lotara didn't give them hope. She gave them time, long enough to vanish clean. It might have worked, if not for Khan. He showed up at the last shuttle, helmet in hand, axe silent, didn't shout, didn't accuse, just said, "Traitors." No one fired. They didn't need to. The Conqueror did it for them. Torpedo bays opened, auto targets locked, 4 shuttles, gone. Vapor. Silent flashes against black. Maruk's was the last. He voxed the bridge, voice broken, heart shattered. "You told us to run." Lotara didn't reply. She looked at Skåne, raised her sidearm, fired, 1 shot, chest, clean. He didn't resist. She opened the vox. Target shuttle. Fire. And the last escape burned. Maruk died cursing her name, believing she betrayed them, that she lied, that she snapped. But here's the truth. The ship noticed the plan, and if even one had gotten out, the story of what the Conqueror had become would have reached Terra, and Terra would have answered the only way it could. Exterminatus. She didn't kill them to protect the ship. She killed them to protect the lie, that there was still a captain, still a crew, still a warship with a purpose, because if that lie broke, everything died. After the launch deck went silent, she walked back to the bridge, took her seat, no tears, no ceremony, just placed both hands on the yoke. "We are still here." The ship pulsed once, deck lights dimmed, then it resumed orbit. Obedient, for now. He was going to kill the ship, not by sabotage, not by intent, just by existing. Angron had become a walking catastrophe, his presence a psychic detonation that never stopped expanding. Every time he stepped onto a new deck, the machine spirit buckled, reactors spiked, Geller fields flickered, crew died from proximity, and he was heading toward the engine core. If he got there, there'd be no Conqueror left to save. Lotara needed time, a delay, a pause in the storm. So she called Scrivok, Night Lords, cowards with knives, but smart, always smart. He had something Angron didn't, a ship designed to trap minds. The Nightfall, a labyrinth of false halls, shifting light, broken time. If they could get Angron into it, they might hold him long enough to stabilize the core. The plan wasn't betrayal, not openly. Lotara framed it as containment. Khan didn't buy it, but he agreed, which was worse. Because when Khan stops resisting, something in him is already gone. They lured Angron to the lower deck, said the enemy was massing there, said a teleport assault was required. He smiled. The second the beam locked on, the ship screamed, not from damage, from loss. It howled across every Vox channel in Lotara's voice, begging, cursing, pleading with Angron to stay. It had accepted him, and now they were ripping him out. When he vanished, the Conqueror lost gravity in 12 decks. 3 tech priests exploded. The ship vented atmosphere just to hurt itself. Lotara stayed in the chair, whispered until it calmed down, held its attention. On the Nightfall, Angron tore through steel, memories, false doors, bleeding mirrors. Scrivox sent updates, short, nervous, always followed by silence. It worked, for a little while. Long enough for Lotara to purge the primary power couplings, reroute cooling, stabilize life support on the lower decks. Then the signal broke, and Angron was back. He didn't kill her, didn't speak, just walked past her on the bridge, left bloody prints in the steel, and kept going. Lotara didn't look at him, didn't thank him, just sat back down and resumed orbital alignment. The ship was calm now, like a beast reunited with its master. But it didn't forgive her. The lights still dim when she speaks. The yoke vibrates when she lies. The ship remembers what she tried, and waits for her to try it again. No one saw her die. There wasn't a moment. No scream, no wound, no final order. Just a shift. One day Lotara was still walking the bridge. The next, the ship started answering her before she spoke. She didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't blink on the pict feeds. She still gave commands, still monitored systems. But her voice came over channels no one opened, from decks no one accessed. Then she appeared in 2 places at once. And that was when the crew stopped asking questions. Lotara Sarrin, the human, was gone. What remained wasn't flesh, not fully. A presence in the bridge, wearing her face, speaking in her tone. But she was fused into the Conqueror now. Bone in metal, will in circuit, and the ship was no longer dreaming, it was believing. The Wraith came next, a projection, flickering, too clean to be real. Still wearing her old uniform, still tapping phantom controls. The officers called her the Ghost. But the ship had another name, the Mistress. She spoke in loops, carried out orders from decades ago, asked for fleet updates, tried to contact Horus. No one answered, but she didn't notice. She believed the war was still happening, believed the Conqueror still mattered, and the ship indulged her. Because she was part of it now. Some say the real Lotara is buried in the engine shrine, a mass of fused bone and brass, eyes glassed over, mouth still twitching. Others claim she dissolved during a warp breach, and what's left is just a memory echo, bound to the machine spirit like static. But the truth is worse. They're both real. The body rots in the core. The voice stalks the bridge. The mistress doesn't recognize new crew, doesn't answer to questions. But if you speak to her with respect, if you salute when you enter, sometimes she smiles, and sometimes she kills you anyway. The ship is hers now. Not in the way captains claim ships, in the way gods claim avatars. She doesn't remember what she did, or what she's become. But when the lights dim and the walls tremble, her voice whispers one phrase into every comm bead on the ship. This is my command. And no one argues, because even after death, Lotara still has rank. 10,000 years later, the Conqueror still drifts. It has no destination, no war to fight, no orders to obey. But it moves, through warp tides, through void storms, drawn by memory, driven by blood, and at its center, still commanding, still whispering, the mistress, no longer flesh, no longer thought, just function, a ghost that doesn't know it's dead. An echo sealed in steel. She speaks only to those the ship chooses, and only when it wants them to listen. Kosalax the Forsworn hears her, or claims to. He's seen her drift through sealed bulkheads, felt her eyes burn on the back of his skull. He treats her like a relic. He's right to. The bridge is a tomb now, inert, quiet. But the command throne still pulses, still sparks, still shivers when Khorne's name is spoken aloud. And in the reflection of every cracked pick screen, she's there, Lotara, red uniform, clean, eyes too sharp for a dream, still issuing orders from a war that ended 10 millennia ago. Sometimes she demands reports from dead officers. Sometimes she accuses Kosalax of treason. Sometimes she simply weeps. No one dares to correct her, not because they believe, because the ship might. The Conqueror kills intruders now, not with weapons, with belief. It shows them corridors that shouldn't exist, loops them into forever, rewrites logs, projects Lotara's voice screaming orders from every direction, until they forget who they are, what they came for, and start saluting the ghost. When Angron returned, ripped free from the warp by ritual and rage, he stepped aboard his old flagship. The walls screamed with recognition. The decks pulsed with blood. And the mistress greeted him, not as a servant, as a constant. He looked at her, didn't blink, didn't speak, just nodded, and the ship bent in half to welcome him home. Since then, the mistress has grown bolder. She speaks to the engine crew, charts false star maps, recites blood-stained stanzas from a memory that never happened. She believes this is still the Great Crusade, still the glory era, still her ship, and the Conqueror, in its own madness, lets her believe it. Because if it didn't, she might finally fade, and then it would be alone. There is no ending. The Conqueror still drifts. The war is long over, but it hasn't been told. Pick screens crackle awake in dead sectors. Internal cogitators recompile orders from centuries ago. A blood-slick speaker in an abandoned drop bay still plays a launch protocol. Looped. Wrong. Naming commanders who no longer exist. And in the heart of the ship, a voice repeats, "Confirm combat status. Requesting orbital clearance." No one responds. They haven't for 10,000 years. But the voice keeps asking, because that's what it was told to do. Some say Lotara's still alive, that her soul is bound to the reactor, that her mind lives in the subroutines, that if you kneel on deck 3, just past the burnt Aquila, you can hear her breathing. Others say she never existed, that the ship needed a ghost to make the madness feel merciful, that the mistress is just guilt turned to protocol. But every crew who's ever set foot here, every heretic, scavenger, lost legionnaire, or cult priest, they all say the same thing before they vanish. She was speaking to me. Not shouting, not commanding, just speaking. Software tired. Absolute. Sometimes the ship plays her voice over the hull comms. Not inside, outside. A whisper cast into space. Endless. Unreceived. Once, the Vox relays picked up a phantom signal from deep void. "This is Captain Lotara Sarrin of the Gloriana-class warship Conqueror. Standing by for reintegration into the fleet. We are still here." It wasn't broadcast. It was a response. No one knows to what, or who, or if it was even real. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just the ship talking to itself. But the Conqueror still moves. Its course is nonsense. A loop, a spiral, a bleeding orbit around forgotten systems. A funeral procession with no mourners. And at its head, the bridge still glows. The command throne still hums. And the mistress still waits. Not for orders, not for battle, for permission to stop, to power down, to die. But no one ever gives it. So she stays. Her voice is softer now. Sometimes it cuts out mid-word. Sometimes it starts speaking before the Vox catches her. Sometimes she doesn't speak at all. Just listens. To the hum of the ship. To the teeth of the warp. To the silence of a galaxy that forgot her name. But when you stand on her bridge, and if you dare, and close your eyes, you'll hear it, faint, looping, from deep beneath the steel. "This is my command. This is my command. This is my..." And then static.